What if I told you the secret to becoming a better rocket scientist is learning how to pipe delicate, perfectly shaped frosting onto a vanilla cupcake?
I mean, it sounds like a complete joke, right?
Yeah.
You picture someone building a multi-million-dollar thruster for a spacecraft, and then they go home and just like aggressively decorate a pastry.
Yeah, it creates this massive cognitive dissonance. We have this really rigid expectation that highly specialized geniuses live exclusively in these sterile labs,
Yeah.
entirely consumed by their specific field of study.
Right, completely isolated.
Exactly. And welcome to today's deep dive where we are completely shattering that expectation.
Oh, absolutely.
We are exploring a truly captivating set of narrative fiction chapters today, and it seamlessly weaves these complex, universe-bending scientific theories directly into rich, character-driven drama. Our mission here is to explore the concept of a Brainload Banquet, meet this wildly fascinating crew of characters, and uncover how this story uses the most everyday setting, which is a local bakery, to tackle the fundamental mysteries of the cosmos.
And the author pulls off such a brilliant narrative trick here. Because instead of keeping these massive, abstract, scientific concepts locked up in some, academic ivory tower,
Right.
the story forces those concepts down into a tactile, sticky, flour-dusted reality for you, the reader. It brings it right down to earth.
Okay, let's unpack this. The premise follows two characters, Henry and River. They are these two young, hyper-curious minds who spend their days aggressively grappling with intense theoretical research.
Very heavy stuff.
Yeah, super heavy. But in the chapters we are looking at today, Henry hits a wall. I mean, his mind is completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, he's totally burned out.
Right. So to take a break from his obsessive studies, he takes what seems like a completely mindless detour. He gets a job at a local bakery run by a woman named Joanna.
He's stepping out of his own head, basically, and stepping into a physical, hands-on environment. He is just looking for a space where the biggest problem is making sure the oven timer doesn't go off too late.
That is exactly what he expects. But he walks into the kitchen on his first day, and the reality of this bakery hits him like a freight train.
Oh yeah, it is not what he thought at all.
Not at all. He watches a guy at the espresso machine treating the morning coffee run like a high-stakes titration experiment.
That's Gustav.
Right, Gustav. And it turns out Gustav isn't just a baker. He's an active police officer and a trained chemist.
Which is wild.
It's so wild. He handles all the hyper-precise measurements for the batters and doughs.
And the surprises just compound from there.
Yeah.
Because right next to Gustav, you have Augustine.
Oh, man, Augustine. So picture this massive, muscular guy with a booming voice. You'd think he was hauling sacks of flour around the back.
Right, exactly.
But Augustine is an aerospace engineer,
Yep.
and his designated role in the kitchen, he finds absolute comfort in analyzing the fluid dynamics required to pipe cute, intricate, delicate cake designs.
It's such a great visual. And then Henry meets Dietrich, the pastry chef and filling expert.
The guy with purple hair.
Exactly. Dietrich has purple hair, glasses that are just permanently dusted with powdered sugar, and oh yeah, he happens to be a practicing neurosurgeon.
Like a literal brain surgeon making pastry cream.
Yeah. And to round out the crew, you have Raven, the cupcake artist. She sports a fully tattooed arm, brings a very heavy, sarcastic energy to the room. Yeah. And she is a cryobiologist.
Studying how organic life survives in extreme freezing temperatures, right?
Exactly. And initially, she is incredibly snarky towards Henry. Like, she dismisses him as just another nerd invading her space.
Which is a hilarious bit of irony considering she is a cryobiologist decorating cupcakes next to a neurosurgeon.
Right, the lack of self-awareness there is pretty funny.
Yeah, so I look at this group and I see an Avengers team of academics hiding out in plain sight, just making scones. But I have to push back on the core premise for a second.
Okay, lay on me.
Why would a neurosurgeon, an aerospace engineer, and a chemist spend their precious free time working in a local bakery? I mean, isn't that a massive waste of their highly specialized expertise?
You'd think so, yeah.
If I'm a world-class neurosurgeon, shouldn't I be reading medical journals in my spare time?
Well, Dietrich actually tackles that exact assumption in the text. When River questions their lifestyle later on, Dietrich introduces this terrifying concept he calls skill atrophy.
Skill atrophy, like muscles wasting away.
That is the perfect analogy, yeah. Because Dietrich insists we have to treat the brain identically to a muscle. I mean, if you only ever do bicep curls, your legs grow weak, right?
Yeah, of course.
So Dietrich argues that focusing intensely on only one specialized skill, even a wildly complex one like neurosurgery, creates an opportunity cost in the brain.
Oh, interesting.
By isolating your focus, you are physically starving your brain of neuroplasticity.
Wait, let's drill down into that. How does piping frosting prevent a neurosurgeon's brain from atrophying?
Well, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. When you learn a completely novel physical or mental task, your neurons fire in new patterns.
These synapses get stronger.
Right. Synapses strengthen. If a neurosurgeon only performs surgery, those specific neural pathways become like superhighways, but the rest of the brain's potential pathways become these overgrown, ignored dirt roads.
That makes a lot of sense.
So baking forces Dietrich to learn entirely new spatial reasoning, new motor movements, and new sensory processing.
Oh, so he is cross-training his central nervous system.
Exactly. He is physically altering the wiring of his brain to keep it agile. They aren't hiding from their specialized fields. They are actively enhancing their cognitive flexibility so that when they go back to the hospital or the lab, their brains are primed to solve problems from totally different angles.
Wow, that completely reframes the narrative. Because this staff is composed entirely of scientists treating the bakery like a cross-training gym, Henry isn't just taught how to bake a cake. He is thrust into a rigorous scientific method hiding inside the culinary arts.
And the story does this beautiful job of blurring the lines between the sterile lab and the messy kitchen countertop. We see this super vividly when Gustav takes Henry under his wing for a lesson in what he calls wet chemistry.
Yeah, Gustav starts with the espresso machine.
Right.
And he doesn't just show Henry which button to push. He breaks down the grind size of the beans as a literal lesson in surface area and extraction.
It's all about surface area.
Exactly. He explains that if the grind is too fine, the water takes too long to pass through and it over-extracts the compounds, creating this bitter sludge.
Nobody wants bitter sludge.
Right. But if it's too coarse, the water flashes right through, leaving you with sour bean water.
And Gustav even analyzes the exact geometric angle of the steam wand to create a vortex in the milk.
Oh, right, for the foam.
Yeah, he explains how folding the proteins creates microfoam instead of just blowing large, useless bubbles into the pitcher. It's so precise.
And from there, Gustav scales the lesson up to the cake batter. He breaks down the acid-base reactions happening in the mixing bowl. He explains how baking soda, which is a base, reacts with acidic ingredients like buttermilk.
To produce carbon dioxide gas.
Right. Those gas bubbles get trapped in the gluten network of the flour, expanding in the heat of the oven to give the cake its lift.
And Gustav doesn't mince words about the stakes here either.
No, he is very intense about it.
He warns Henry that misjudging the leavening agent doesn't just result in a dense cake. It creates a violent batter volcano or a dough behemoth that will literally overflow the pans and conquer the oven.
A dough behemoth. I love that phrasing. And then Dietrich tags in to teach Henry about fillings, specifically a delicate raspberry buttercream.
Right, but Dietrich, ever the neurosurgeon, doesn't just say, hey, taste this, it's delicious.
No, of course not. He turns it into a full lesson on neurology. He explains that experiencing this new complex flavor profile causes the brain to release neurotransmitters like dopamine.
Dietrich goes deep into the evolutionary biology here. He explains the mesolimbic pathway, the brain's reward circuit.
The mesolimbic pathway.
Yeah. For our ancient ancestors, finding dense calories and nutrients was literally a matter of life and death. So the brain evolved to release a massive flush of dopamine when we consume complex carbohydrates and fats.
It's a biological survival mechanism.
Exactly. You aren't
Yeah.
just eating buttercream, you're triggering millions of years of evolutionary programming designed to keep humanity alive.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I can buy the biological dopamine hit, sure. But I have to challenge Gustav's claim about the cake batter being pure chemistry.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, in an actual chemistry lab, a millimeter of liquid is exact. You use pipettes, digital balances, fume hoods. The variables are fiercely controlled to ensure reproducible results.
That's true. It's very controlled.
But baking is notoriously chaotic. The elevation of your city, the humidity from a rainstorm outside, the mood of your ancient oven, all of it can turn a perfect recipe into a brick.
Yep. Anyone who bakes knows that pain.
So how can Gustav sit there and claim baking is just like chemistry when it feels like rolling the dice?
Well, Henry throws that exact challenge at Gustav in the story. And Gustav's response is brilliant because he concedes the point, but he uses it to elevate baking.
Oh, how so?
Gustav admits that a standard lab operates in a highly controlled vacuum. Measurements follow known laws with guaranteed outcomes. But a bakery is entirely exposed to the elements. So baking actually adds a layer of complexity to chemistry because of those uncontrollable external variables you just mentioned.
So it's like chemistry in the wild.
Yes.
Hmm.
Chemistry in the wild. The same exact ingredients measured to the gram can produce wildly varying results day to day just based on barometric pressure or ambient moisture.
That is so true.
Therefore, baking demands the rigid precision of a laboratory, but it pairs that with the demand for profound adaptability and human intuition.
You really have to read the dough.
You do. You have to feel the humidity in the room and adjust your chemical experiment on the fly. It turns every single batch into a thrilling, unpredictable scientific endeavor.
I love that. It takes the rigid scientist and forces them to become this intuitive artist. And, the shared philosophy of continuous learning doesn't just stay confined to the bakery kitchen.
No, it spills out everywhere.
The narrative shifts, showing us how this crew's desire to boost their neuroplasticity dictates their entire social structure.
Right. The story moves from the workplace into their personal lives, leading Henry and River to a highly unusual house party.
Yeah. Raven, who is finally dropping her snarky defense mechanisms, by the way, and warming up to Henry and River, drives them over to Dietrich's house.
And Dietrich's house is something else.
It is an absolute physical manifestation of their chaotic, diverse interests. It's this eclectic paradise stuffed from floor to ceiling with dense academic textbooks sitting right next to vintage comic book posters.
It visually represents exactly what's happening in their brains. There are no artificial walls between high science and low pop culture.
And while they are soaking this all in, Augustine, the massive aerospace engineer, is animatedly talking about his obsession with taking disparate ideas from other people and combining them into a mashup or a pastiche.
Right, he believes that forcing these intertextual concepts together is the ultimate workout for his brain's neuroplasticity.
So he's applying the exact same cross-training logic from the bakery, but porting it over to narrative structures and art.
Exactly. And at this gathering, we also meet a new character, Max, or Maxwell. He is this super friendly second-year university student studying political science.
He used to work at the bakery, right?
Yeah, he used to work there before heading off to school, so he knows all the crew's quirks. He is the one who pulls a very bewildered Henry aside and explains the rules of the night.
Because it's not a normal party.
No, Max announces to Henry that it's the 58th Brainload Banquet.
The Brainload Banquet. And Dietrich wastes no time. He steps to the center of the room and kicks off the banquet by announcing that today he learned about the Mpemba effect.
Which gets a loud, playful groan from Raven.
Yeah, it does. But pause. What on earth is the Mpemba effect?
Okay, so the Mpemba effect is this incredibly counterintuitive phenomenon in physics where hot water can actually freeze faster than cold water under certain conditions.
Wait, what? That makes zero sense. The hot water has to cool down to the cold water starting temperature first. It should inherently take longer.
It completely defies basic logic, which is exactly why scientists have been arguing about it for decades. There isn't one universally agreed upon mechanism, but theories suggest that heating water changes the covalent bonds between the hydrogen and oxygen atoms.
Okay, so it changes on a molecular level.
Right. Or another theory is that hot water evaporates faster, reducing the total mass of the water left to freeze.
Oh, less water means it freezes faster. That makes sense.
Yeah, and convection currents in the warm water might also distribute the cold more efficiently once it hits the freezer.
That is a wild piece of trivia. But what is the actual point of this Brainload Banquet? I mean, is it just a room full of geniuses trying to out-nerd each other with obscure physics facts?
It does sound like that, doesn't it?
It sounds like an intellectual potluck where you're forced to bring a Wikipedia article instead of a casserole.
Well, Max explains to Henry that just showing off trivia is completely missing the point. The first step of the banquet is for everyone to dump the completely unrelated facts they learned that day onto the table.
Okay.
But the crucial second step, the entire mission of the night, is that the group must work together to find the hidden conceptual bridges between these completely disparate pieces of information.
Ah, so they have to weave the Mpemba effect, political science, and aerospace engineering into one cohesive story.
Exactly. They are actively rebelling against the idea of knowledge existing in isolated silos. The banquet forces their brains to draw lines connecting the micro to the macro, creating this unified web of understanding.
It is the ultimate exercise in synthesis.
It really is.
And because the rules of the banquet explicitly demand the creation of a massive, unified concept, It sets the perfect stage for River.
Oh, River's big moment.
Yes. Up until this point, River has been quietly observing the chaos, but she realizes this is the exact environment to test a massive theoretical crossover she and Henry have been privately obsessing over.
You can really feel the tension in the narrative here. It's an intensely vulnerable moment for her to step into the spotlight in front of these established, brilliant minds.
Oh, definitely. So, with some gentle nudging from Raven and Henry, a very nervous River steps up. And she pitches a story that just drops the temperature in the room.
It's so good.
She tells them that the life cycle of a microscopic human red blood cell is a direct mirror to the life cycle of a massive cosmic black hole.
It's an audacious, just breathtaking leap of imagination.
It is. And she breaks it down into 3 distinct stages. So, stage 1. She compares bone marrow, which she describes as the biological nursery where stem cells originate and mature into red blood cells, to a cosmic nursery.
Right.
And a cosmic nursery is the remnants of a colossal dying star, this dense stellar nebula where gravity collapses gas and dust to eventually form a black hole.
So she establishes a shared origin point there. Both entities are birthed from the collapsed, recycled remnants of an older structure.
Yes. Then she moves to stage 2, the active phase. A red blood cell is pumped through the body, distributing vital oxygen and sustaining the biological ecosystem.
Which is vital for life.
Right. And River likens this to a black hole acting as a universal dynamo.
And a dynamo is essentially an engine or a generator. A supermassive black hole at the center of a galaxy doesn't just sit there eating everything,
It doesn't.
No. Its immense gravitational force and the friction of its accretion disk generate massive energetic emissions. It literally shapes and molds the galaxy swirling around it, much like a heart pumping cells to sustain a body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, both serve as the central, driving engine, exerting profound influence over their respective systems.
Then she hits them with stage 3, the conclusion. After roughly 120 days, a red blood cell becomes damaged and is decomposed in the spleen.
Right, the body recycles it.
Exactly. Its raw materials are repurposed by the body, and River compares this biological decomposition to a black hole eventually evaporating through Hawking radiation.
Which is another massive scientific concept she just casually drops into the mix.
Wait, let me stop you right there, because I thought the defining trait of a black hole is that its gravity is so intense that absolutely nothing, not even light, can escape it.
That is the common understanding, yeah.
So how can a black hole evaporate?
Well, it comes down to quantum mechanics at the very edge of the black hole, which is the event horizon. Stephen Hawking theorized that empty space isn't actually empty.
It's not.
No, it is filled with pairs of virtual particles that constantly pop into existence, collide, and annihilate each other.
Like a microscopic boiling soup of energy.
Exactly like that. But if this particle pair pops into existence exactly on the event horizon, one particle gets sucked into the black hole and the other escapes into space.
Oh, I see.
And because the universe has to balance its energetic books, the escaping particle essentially steals a tiny fraction of the black hole's mass.
So it's slowly bleeding mass.
Right. Over unimaginably vast stretches of time, we're talking trillions of years, this process Hawking radiation causes the black hole to slowly lose mass, shrink, and eventually evaporate, leaking its energy back into the universe.
Just like the spleen breaking down the red blood cell and returning the iron to the body, that is incredible.
The parallels are amazing.
And the reaction from the room in the story is instantaneous. Dietrich, the neurosurgeon, just lights up. He starts shouting about fractals.
Because he sees this as proof of patterns repeating themselves infinitely across different scales of reality.
Right. So what does this all mean? I mean, I have to play devil's advocate for a second and push back on River's grand theory.
Go for it.
You have a...
By drawing this parallel, she demonstrates that whether you look through a microscope or a telescope, the fundamental narrative rhythm of the universe remains consistent. You have birth from the ashes of older structures. You have an active dynamo phase that sustains the surrounding system. And you have an eventual decay that refuses to end in nothingness, instead recycling its energy back into the broader environment.
So it's not about the size of the instrument, it's about the shape of the song it's playing. The immense and the minuscule operate on the exact same principles of transformation and continuity.
Which perfectly aligns with the entire mission of the Brainload Banquet, finding the invisible threads that tie the entire universe together.
And that brings us to why this fictional deep dive matters to you, the listener, right now. This story uses the drama of an eccentric bakery staff and a nerdy dinner party to deliver a highly actionable, real-world philosophy. It is a rallying cry against narrowing your human experience.
It's a challenge to audit your own intellectual habits. Like, ask yourself, are you isolating yourself in a silo?
It is so easy to fall victim to skill atrophy, to become a master of your specific daily routine and let the rest of your brain's potential turn into those overgrown dirt roads.
Happens to the best of us.
This story begs you to actively fight against that. Force your brain into new neural pathways. Combine two entirely unrelated things you learned today and demand that your brain find the conceptual bridge between them. Look for the fluid dynamics in your morning coffee or the evolutionary biology in your dessert.
Because the world is infinitely more complex and interwoven than our daily routines suggest. You just have to be willing to look for the patterns.
And to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over, building on River's incredible presentation. Later in the text, River is quietly pondering this cosmic connection, and she drops a massive shift in perspective.
This part is mind-blowing.
She wonders, if the patterns of the universe prove that a massive black hole undergoes a life cycle fundamentally identical to a tiny red blood cell, what if we, right now, are just existing on a microscopic scale inside a much larger system?
It's wild to think about.
What if our entire known universe is functioning like a single microscopic cell within a larger cosmic body, and we are just experiencing time entirely differently?
It completely shatters your perception of scale and significance.
It shrinks the cosmos down to a petri dish. So the next time you're standing in front of a bakery display looking at a perfectly piped raspberry buttercream cupcake, remember, you aren't just looking at a pastry. You are looking at chemistry, evolutionary biology, and the universal cycles of creation, all hiding right there in plain sight. Keep pushing back against the silos, keep looking for the connections, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.